Scotty, beam me up.
Oh. Smash. Get over here.
It is pointless to resist.
Here we go.
All right. Welcome to the Geek Den. We got our buddy Bryan Goodrich here. What's up, bud?
How's it going?
The sexiness himself.
The man with the exceptional beard.
I'm working on it.
Not me.
Better than what I got. Fucking weird looking squirrel.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it, Bryan. I've watched your newest episode on your show, and I love the fishing. I'm a big fan of fishing myself. But the one question I have for you in watching both of them, what's the biggest challenge you've had doing a hunting show, or both fishing and hunting?
The fishing episode my dad filmed with my nephew, and he did all the editing and he sent it to me, so I wasn't actually there for that. But I think the biggest challenge for me is trying to balance between the two. You know, there's a show on Amazon Prime that I watched called Solo Hunter that was largely my inspiration to do that, and it was just a guy with a couple cameras. He's got a GoPro on his bow, and he's got a GoPro on his head, and he walks around with a camera on a tripod. And the hosts of the show are always complaining about how they keep missing opportunities, missing shots, because they're fumbling around with cameras, and they're entirely by themselves, which is really unlike any other hunting related show, because you've usually got a film crew, and all you have to do is talk to the camera and do the hunting element of it or the fishing element of it. You don't have to be the cameraman and the host at the same time. So that presented a pretty unique challenge, even though, you know, we never really got any opportunities to get close to an animal. So I haven't yet missed a shot because of the filming, but it was, and you know, the other challenge really is to try to generate content. You know, what separates me from most other channels or hunting related shows is that I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have a tremendous amount of things to teach the audience. It's like, hey, if you don't know what you're doing, watch me screw up so that you don't make the same mistakes, or, you know, like, this is what I learned. Maybe you'll find out that this works for you, or, you know, what have you. So, you know, we're still kind of getting used to doing the filming while we're hunting or fishing, and having things to actually say, and having the content that's going to be worth watching and make it entertaining for people.
Yeah, and it is entertaining. I really like your presence, your voice. You're so confident when you're talking over it that it's like Ranella or any of those other guys, where they bring you into the hunt with their voice and their approachability, their relatability. It's like, oh, this is a guy I know. I've been hunting with him 100 times. And I love that about your show. The other part I like, and this will get into another question, we've all been hunting and had times where we don't get anything. But those are hunts, especially whether you're recording them or not, tend to be the most memorable. So with that in mind, what has been one of your most memorable hunts or fishing trips?
I mean, so far they've all been pretty memorable. You know, and I'm always going out with my dad, and he's hunted a lot when I was growing up, and he's just kind of getting back into it as well. So, you know, anytime I'm out in the woods with my old man, it's a very memorable experience. And, you know, you're talking about the more memorable experience being when you don't end up with an animal and you don't fill your tag. So Ranella, as you mentioned, he's one of my biggest influences and a personal hero. And he's got a philosophy that the the lowest grade fun is something that's instantaneously fun, like a roller coaster. Like nobody's gonna bring up in conversation, hey, remember that roller coaster we rode on 5 years ago? How great was that? And the highest grade fun is one that's completely miserable while you're doing it, that you look back on fondly. So the last trip I went on just a few weeks ago was an archery elk hunt on the coastal range near the Sixes River, and it rained badly for 2 straight days, and both of our tents leaked, and so all of our gear was wet. My dad's clothes were all wet. My pillow, our sleeping bags, everything was just soaked for 2 solid days. And we actually had several conversations about that and saying, hey, we're miserable right now, but we're going to look back on this and it's going to be awesome. Like, this was such a great trip that absolutely sucked. So I think that's probably one of the ones that really kind of takes the cake. And we got real close to a big bull the first day that had a couple of cows with him in tow, and we never actually saw him, but being able to emulate a call and have it be responded, and have that animal not only respond, but be receptive to it and come toward it. I mean, we brought him in on a rope, and he got to where he was about 60 or 80 yards from us, and we heard cows kind of scattered behind him, and my dad and I were on opposite sides of this little trail, and I was doing cow calls and he was doing bugling, and it got real intense. My heart was racing, the adrenaline just really kicked up. And then I think in our excitement and in our inexperience, we maybe got a little too overzealous with the calling and maybe calling a little too much. And I think the elk kind of lost interest, and then you could hear them start to kind of go away and go on about their day and do their thing. And then they were gone. So we never actually got close enough to take a shot at one, but just having them be that close and being able to emulate that sort of sound with just a little diaphragm call that sits on the roof of your mouth with a little bit of silicone was really exciting. It was a very cool experience.
It's like speaking a language for the first time and having someone understand you.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It's a whole new feeling.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Way than anything else.
Right. And we had the same experience in the spring. We did a turkey hunt, and we set up some decoys, and we called in this big tom that was way off in the distance, and he ended up getting close to our decoys and then flying over our heads and ended up the hill behind us. And the thing sounded like it was on my back. It got so close that I probably could have hit it with a rock from where we were sitting. And then when my dad had to swivel around because it ended up behind us, and so he swiveled around to take a shot. And I think in that process, it kind of got spooked a little bit, and he ended up missing the shot. But just the fact that we were able to communicate with this wild animal and have it come in, and because domestic turkeys are stupid, wild turkeys are really not stupid at all. They're really a totally different animal than a domestic turkey. Yeah. Domestic turkeys will drown in the rain by looking into the sky when they feel something drop on their head. I'm not even kidding. Wild turkeys are way smarter and way more crafty because they are in the wild and they do have predators to have to deal with. And so being able to draw that animal in, whether or not we took it home, was so exciting. So those probably the two most memorable events we've had so far. And the elk hunt, we did film, and I need to put the music to it and the narration. So that episode will be posted probably here in the next day or two.
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
We do some, or we have some elk up here, but they're one of those rare draws, at least in Alberta. And so you only get a chance to go after them once every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But
and I got lucky getting an archery tag this year because the state of Oregon, as of next year, is reverting to all of the archery tags being a draw. Instead of being able to get a general season over-the-counter archery tag, you're going to have to put in for one. So I'm going to next year, and until I have enough points to draw one, I'm going to have to settle for a rifle elk tag, which is beat past the rut in November when they're done with their breeding season. And so it makes it a little bit different game to try to call one in and try to get one, because they're not heated up in the middle of the rut when all they want to do is fight and mate. And it's easy to call them in at that point. So they're depleted and dehydrated by November and just kind of hanging out, waiting for winter to set in at that point. So exactly.
They're pretty prevalent here in Pennsylvania. Like there's a overlook about half an hour away from me that you can go up and just stand on a scenic outlook and you just see a fucking herd of them just out in the field. It's one of the most beautiful things you can ever see.
I used to have a 90-minute commute up I-5 through the mountains to work when I drove a loader, and I saw the same elk herd in the same pasture every afternoon. And I don't know how many times I'd pull over and just sit and watch them. Elk are easily one of my absolute favorite animals in the world. They're just so much fun to watch, and they make just wild sounds, and they're, the meat is just some of the best on the planet. So.
They are fucking delicious.
Right.
To see them like that, I have to go to, there's a national park in Jasper, and it's a big famous thing on the internet. If you ever look up Jasper, or you want to make fun of Canadians or tourists in Canada especially, you go into Jasper Park and there's cars stopped all along the highway, and they're taking pictures, and the elk will actually come right up to the cars and they just stand on the side of the highway. They don't run away. If you get out of the vehicle, they'll probably just rip you apart with those antlers.
Oh, sure.
It's nuts.
They'll fuck you up.
And
it's like the buffalo in Yellowstone, the same thing.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yep.
You don't want any of that business at all.
No,
it's not a good time.
But the cool thing,
yeah.
I was gonna say
the turkeys are scary enough.
I don't know how many you have down there, but I like the big sheep and the big mountain goats. They're amazing.
Yeah.
What's
big sheep hunt's definitely on my bucket list. We actually have a big sheep skull here in my house that my father-in-law gave us. That's pretty neat, but a big sheep hunt's definitely on my bucket list at some point in my life.
Awesome. Well, just before we pop into break here, Bryan, what's all time from birth to today very favorite hunting trip?
Well, I never hunted until this year. So I've been fishing my whole life. I could catch and fillet a trout. Yeah. By the time I was like 6, I could fillet a trout. My granddad was a park ranger, and between him and my dad, I grew up with a fishing pole in my hand. So I'd say probably the most memorable fishing trips for me was, so I grew up in North Central Washington, in a little town called Wenatchee. And we would vacation at the very bottom corner of coastal Washington in a town called Long Beach. And it was right on the border. So it was, spitting distance from the mouth of the Columbia River, which that far west is what separates Washington from Oregon. And so like Portland and Astoria were right on the other side of the river. So there was a little town right on the mouth of the river called Ilwaco. And there was a cannery there, and it was a little fishing village for lack of a better term. And there was a charter boat company there that we would go to every time we'd vacation. Excuse me. And we would go sturgeon fishing right in the mouth of the river. And the regulations are real specific. It's like between 46 and 52 inches or something real small margin like that. And 42 and 52, or I forget what it was, but the first time we went, I was probably 10. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a sturgeon, but they're prehistoric looking. They're huge fish with the sucker on their mouth. And the ones the species that we were catching, their backs were lined with razor sharp spines that will absolutely cut the shit out of you if you're not careful. They're really just crazy looking animals, and they don't stop growing until they die. And so there's newspaper articles of, 1,500, 2,500 pound sturgeon that got caught that was, the size of a small whale. But so the first time I caught one, my dad came up behind me and he wrapped his arm around me and grabbed his jacket with his hand. And then he put his other hand on the railing and put his legs kind of on either side of me and sort of held me in place, because this fish probably could have pulled me out of the boat if it wanted to. It was, I was a little guy when I was 10, and I got into what they call the 50-inch club, where I caught one that was over 50 inches, but was still within the margin of a legal catch. And so I got all the accolades on the boat from the captain. And so we returned to that same charter boat every year. And it was the same captain, same first mate and everything. And Captain Milty. And he, years later, was still sending Christmas cards to my parents. Like we kept in touch with him for for several years until he retired, and then he kind of disappeared into the ether. But that was probably some of the best memories of my childhood was catching sturgeon with my dad.
Okay. Well, I guess the dinosaurs are one of the best ways to end a segment on, so we'll take a quick something a little louder.
All right, sounds good.
I got the ball that lets you reach for the sky. I got the ball that lets you fly, fly, fly. Higher and higher. I'm a Pokeball master. I got the ball. I'm a Pokeball master. If Pokeball power is your desire, go get the ball that takes you high. Yeah, I'm a Pokeball master. Pokeball master. I got the ball. I'm a Pokeball master.
It's the masked road race set. The Rhino Rig and Venom Jackhammer are battling around the curves and down the straightaways with working headlights and laser cannons blasting away. A dual lap counter lets you know who's ahead. You're in command. Race head-to-head through the deadly squeeze track for real racing excitement. Meanwhile, the mighty Mask electric train set with Hurricane Chevy and Volcano van with launcher defend Boulder Hill. Nothing can stop the Mask train, where illusion is the ultimate weapon. Mask road race and train sets, each sold separately.
Okay, we're back. I got a question for Bryan relating to what we just talked about and what we're going to talk about. You recently went fishing with Chuck Reagan.
Yep.
How was that?
That was probably one of the other most memorable experiences I have fishing. It's difficult to spend a full day with one of your personal heroes and one of your biggest influences and not just hump his fucking leg the whole time. But he's just such a down-to-earth guy and was just so excited. Like, we got there at 7 a.m. and he was fired up, just so excited about fishing and really like has a wealth of knowledge and was a great instructor. He was very patient, very positive. His little boy kept calling him on the phone, and so he kept talking to his son on the phone and stuff, and which is great. I mean, it's like that's not something that's ever gonna bug me. I'm like, dude, do your thing. Like, when my son's that age, he's probably gonna do the same thing. And so fishing with Chuck was really an incredible experience. And actually, so my wife had a hot water music vinyl that she wanted me to take to have him autograph, and I forgot it. And my dad's busting my balls on the boat saying that, she's going to change the locks while I'm gone. And when we anchored in the shade to have lunch, and I called my wife to check in, and Chuck looks at me and goes, dude, put her on speakerphone. And so I had her on speakerphone, and suddenly, she hears this, hey, Carrie. And she's going, who am I talking to right now? And he's like, oh, it's Chuck Reagan. How you doing? And she started talking to her like they were old buddies. And she was just absolutely flabbergasted. She just thought that was the greatest thing ever. And then at the end of the day, Chuck's just such a great sport, man. He autographed my fishing license and the singer in one of my bands in California, Chuck is his biggest influence. And so I was like, man, Darren's going to be really upset that I called my wife and not him. And Chuck's like, well, call him. So we called him and we got voicemail, and Chuck's like, oh, hey, hand me the phone. So, the voicemail beeped, and he goes, Darren, Chuck Reagan here. We just got off the boat with your boy Bryan, and this and that and the other thing, and just wanted to call and say hi. And Darren called me like 5 minutes later and was like, I saw you call, and I had high hopes for why you were calling, and I wanted the voicemail instead of the actual conversation, so that when I told people Chuck Reagan called me on the phone, I'd have proof. Like, man, you thought that out, didn't you? Jesus.
Well,
he's not a rookie. That guy knows.
Yeah.
But
he had that one in the bag, ready to go.
Yeah. But yeah, Chuck's a great dude, man. He's just such a fun guy to hang out with. I can't wait to go again. I told him that next time I saw him, I'd have a hot water music tattoo, and he'd have to autograph my arm so I could tattoo his autograph too. And he thought that was pretty funny. He got a good chuckle out of that.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit away from here, but you'd mentioned being in a number of bands, and I was curious because I have no musical talent at all, so I couldn't imagine being in one band, never mind multiple. What's the best part about being in a bunch of bands?
I think the best part is getting to play a wider variety of music and getting to work with a number of talented musicians. Everybody's got their own style. It's just like, your music playing and writing style is much like a person's just human style or personality. It's reflective of the kind of person that they are in some ways. And you have more opportunities to connect with more people, and sharing the stage with somebody is a very bonding experience. In some ways, it can be, at least, not all the time, but the Restless Sons, for example, the band that I've been in California for about the last 10 years, like, I love those guys like brothers. They're family to me, and I'm family at their house, and their mom loves us, and I do anything for those guys. We have a very special connection because we've been stuffed in a van together driving up the coast. We've been stuck on an airplane for 15 hours flying to Japan. We toured halfway across the world together, and when we did the Japan tour, and we've shared a lot of incredible experiences, and we've grown as individuals, as musicians, and together as a band. And I think, one lends itself to the other in so many ways, that we were able to kind of nurture each other and also kind of flourish on our own within the band, and the songwriting just evolved in so many ways over the last 10 years. It's been a really great journey.
That's awesome.
Yeah. With either of the Gadwalls or the Restless Sons, were you involved with the naming of them? Because as far as anything goes, I love a good origin story, and I was hoping that there's a really cool one, or you made up one for any one of them and wanted to share it with us.
Okay, well, so the Restless Sons were already a band when I joined.
Okay.
So they were already the Restless Sons, and prior to that, so the lead singer Darren plays rhythm guitar, and Bucky, the lead guitar player, is Darren's older brother. And Neil, the bassist, went to school with them. Their mom's a teacher, and so they all went to school together. And Darren and Bucky and Neil played soccer together when they were kids, and the three of them played in a punk rock band in high school called Something Cool. And Darren was actually the drummer in the group, and Bucky was the singer. And then Darren started doing open mic nights and doing a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, largely influenced by guys like Chuck Reagan, Brian Fallon, Tim Barry, stuff like that. And then they kind of sort of revamped the Something Cool with the Restless Sons and put Darren in front instead of on the drums, and kind of slowed some things down. It was a lot less punk rock and had a lot more dynamic to it, and that was kind of the origin of that group. And then I joined them in 2012, and we've been together ever since. So here's a good origin story. Well, it's a short one, but so I started a country band called Laundromat Ponies, and I was the lead singer, and I poached two of my dad's bandmates, and my dad, actually. My dad's the drummer in Laundromat Ponies, which is pretty cool. And so a few years ago, my sister was at a laundromat. My sister's a brilliant photographer, and she doesn't do it for a living anymore, but she's a brilliant photographer. And she was at a laundromat, and they had a little quarter coin operated pony machine in the corner. It's one of those old school little pony rides, and her 3-year-old daughter wanted to ride it. And so she was riding it, and my sister took a picture of Esme riding this little pony, and she posted it on Instagram with the hashtag Laundromat Ponies. And then she thought about it and went back to it and tagged me in that post and said, "Hey, that'd be a cool band name." So I took that and I held on to it for a good couple of years until I actually was able to use it in a band finally. I'd just been sitting on it for a while, so I took the opportunity to use it.
It works with any genre.
Yeah, exact, totally. Yeah,
Like,
and with
it
the
could be a metal
Gadwalls,
band,
right. It could be a number of different things, and it would work out pretty well. And the Gadwalls, I came up with that name, and I, honestly, I just thought it was a cool name. There was a band, I don't remember where exactly they were from. They were from somewhere in Canada. They're called the Ducks, and it was DUHK. And really a great band that I've seen live a number of times on tour when I lived in California. And so I thought, man, Ducks, that's a really great name. I want something like that, like the Ducks or the Porters, another really good band that I'm really into. something that would lend itself to kind of that acoustic country folk punk sort of vibe. And you know, a gadwall is is the duck species. And so it just kind of clicked in my brain. I was watching an episode of Meat Eater, and he was describing different species of ducks, and the name gadwall kind of stood out to me. And so I sat on that for a few months until I was just now recently able to use it.
That's awesome. Both of those are awesome. I love it when you get on something, you're like, I'm going to attach this to something one day, and then you actually do. You don't just lose it or forget it. That's the best.
Oh, totally. That was very gratifying.
Well, we will take another break right now because that leaves us with about 15 minutes left, and we'll be right back.
No TV, no TV.
What? No.
Hello, I'm Pee Wee Herman.
Talking Pee Wee is really cuckoo.
He's naughty.
I know you are, but what am I?
Soon you'll be that way too. Whatever you may do is so much fun when he's with you.
Banana sandwich?
You'll go wacko, you'll go crazy with Talking Pee Wee.
From Matchbox for you and your kid. Cherry sold separately.
What's that? Major Luck.
For great Halloween fun, pick up some spooky decorations at Walgreens. Just $7.99 each. Scary sound-activated Halloween figures, battery-operated pirate skull, witches, skeletons, and more. Stock up on Halloween candy, too. Walgreens has a wide selection of treats and goodies of all kinds. And it's time to order your holiday photo greeting cards. Put your favorite photo on any of 6 beautiful designs. All orders include a free marker pen. Treat yourself to savings this week at Walgreens.
And we're back. What do we got, Mage?
All right, this is my favorite part. I'm a big dork for books. I love books. We talked off air about a book you're writing, and so because I have a bunch of questions, but I want everyone else to hear what it's about. So why don't you start by telling us what your story is about?
Sure. Okay. So it's called Walk Me to the Doorway, and essentially it's about an organization and one member of that organization in particular and his backstory. It's about an organization of people that are called Ushers of Passing, and it's a job, it's a company, if you will. But what they do basically is sit by the side of someone who's dying and provide them with comfort or company or some kind of closure so that, they don't have to die alone. Nobody wants to die alone. And sometimes people pass that don't have families. Sometimes the family members just are so afraid of death that they can't bear to watch somebody die. They can't look death in the eye, and we are, constantly surrounded by death with things like, cancer and heart disease and COVID and violence and things like that. You can't escape it. It's always going to be around. And so the idea, part of the story is that mercy killing and assisted suicide has been legalized nationwide, which has kind of changed the way we handle people who are terminally ill. And that's why this company was kind of founded, because so many people just become so desensitized to it that they don't want to be in the room when their grandmother dies and things like that. And, having personally experienced that before and having missed those experiences before because of this or that or the other thing. And, my granddad passed when I was about 13, and we were visiting him the day of, and I left early to go to a football game at the high school, and the rest of my family stayed for a good couple hours. And after they left, he grabbed a phone book and called people he hadn't talked to in years, decades even, and kind of just found his own closure. And then his breath gave out as he slept. And I battled with the guilt of leaving early for so many years. And it's still something that to this day I carry with me. And so, I feel like maybe he could have been a little more comforted if I had been there a little longer. I was the favorite grandchild and everybody knew it. And, the fact that I kind of brushed him off because I didn't know, I had no idea, but that's the way it works sometimes. Sometimes you just don't know. And so in this story, they have this organization. They're very well groomed. They're very well dressed. They don't smell too strongly of colognes or perfumes, nothing that would set off any kind of excitement or feelings of any kind. They're just very, very calming, very soothing presence. And, they'll hold the person's hand, they'll sing to them. And in the story, they also contract with the prison system with death row inmates when they get lethal injection. Once in a while, there's a case where the families of the victims want the murderer or whoever's on death row to have that kind of comfort and closure, because everybody's human and nobody wants to die. And so the main character's name is Declan, and he in the backstory was a philosophies and comparative religions professor at a local college. And there was the bad car accident in which he held his daughter as she died because she was scared, and she asked him to sing to her. And he was mangled when it happened too, and his wife went into a coma. And then they ended up pulling the plug on his wife, and so he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. And outside of work, he's got a bad drinking problem. He's got a bad problem with intimacy and relationships and letting people in emotionally, and he keeps it all bottled up when he's working because he has to stay professional so as to not, create any problems when he's on the job for the family or for the person who is, passing, because that would just defeat the purpose of him being there. And in their organization, they all have someone else that's a colleague of theirs that's called a shepherd, and they all shepherd each other. So his shepherd is his best friend, Vincent, who, as his shepherd, keeps an eye on him to make sure that he's still mentally and emotionally stable, because watching people die for a living can really affect you in a big way, mentally and emotionally. And they all have to do like group therapy sessions. They all are required to do one-on-one therapy sessions and have all of these regulations and protocol to make sure they're all still capable of not only doing their job but sleeping at night after they do. And so the story is largely about Declan doing his job and being really, really good at it, but also off the clock after hours, he's just kind of unraveling, and the battles that he has within himself when he's not working.
That makes protagonists so relatable when not only they're human. I mean, that's an obvious, but when they're flawed, right? Like the drinking problem or fidelity problem, drug problem, whatever the vice happens to be. And then to make it about death, there sure is something that's both positive and negative, isn't there? Like it's so final, but it's kind of this is going to sound morbid, but kind of a relaxing thought, right? Like they're getting together to usher them to the other side, to make sure that the transition's a comfortable one. They're not afraid. They're leaving with as well, in your story anyway, they're leaving with as much closure as they can. And that's insane. I thought it was more of a fictional take on it. And this is a real personal, like, I think a lot of people can relate to this, not just because everybody's lost somebody, but everybody's lost somebody. And inside, maybe I'm the only one, I won't speak for everybody, but they've kind of hoped or wished for a form of euthanasia that wasn't illegal or that wouldn't traumatize the relative at the end. I mean, I've had loss where it's just I wish I could end their suffering. I wish I could mitigate it anyway. I mean, not to get too dark. I wouldn't want to end anyone's experience here. But you had also mentioned, and after hearing you explain it, that certainly sounds like the mystery cults of the ancient world. And
right.
They had a ton of different funerary. I don't like calling them cults because they're more like religions or groups or organizations.
Sure.
It wasn't about evangelizing and proselytizing. It was making death comfortable. It was and for the other ones, it was making the experience while you were here comfortable and fulfilling. And so, I guess for that part of it, where did you pull the idea of a group that did that from?
Well, so I forget if it was, I think it was a podcast that I listened to. If I'm not mistaken, I'm fairly certain it was a Joe Rogan podcast actually that I heard. And he had a a group of like archaeologists and had a guy that was an author who wrote like alternative history type stuff. I forget the guy's name, Graham Edwards, I want to say. I don't remember. Anyway, so this guy was an author, and he wrote about ancient civilizations and alternative theories based on archaeological, discoveries and things like that. And somebody on one of these podcasts was talking about a Roman death cult during the Roman Empire that would gather when someone was dying, and they would all drink wine that was laced with a list of hallucinogens. It wasn't just one type of thing. It was several herbs and, mushrooms and this and that. And it had all a concoction of powerful hallucinogens, and they would all basically just get jacked up on this wine. And they believed it would help to launch them into the spirit world, so they could actually take the person who was dying and escort them into the afterlife, so that they didn't have to cross over alone.
Okay.
And and it's one of those things, like in the book, in the story that I'm working on, the premise is that I can't take you all the way there. All I can do is walk you to the doorway. And that's where the name of the book came from. And there's one scene in particular where there's an old woman, a grandma, who's undergoing assisted suicide, and Vincent the shepherd is her usher, and he's talking to her, he's comforting her, and her husband had already passed, and he said, I can walk you to the doorway, and your husband's going to take you the rest of the way there. So, we're going to go meet him at this crossroads, basically in this platform, and then I will hand you off to him, basically. And that was the comfort to her, to make her feel okay about what was going on, because, even if it's your time, even if you want the mercy killing or the assisted suicide or whatever you call it, you're going to be scared. I would imagine I'd be terrified, even if I was dying, even if I knew it was going to happen, even if I'd made peace with it. There's just something about the unknown that can be terrifying to a lot of people. And I think that's one of the big reasons that influenced me to work on this story, is that we can't escape death.
Oh no.
Uh-oh, hold on.
That's okay.
I was getting a phone call. Anyway, we can't escape death. It's always going to be there. I've had several friends from back home over the last couple of years just unexpectedly pass away, and people that I'd lost touch with or what have you. And I've had family members over the course of my entire life. Everybody experiences death from the perspective of I guess a bystander or somebody who knows someone who's passed, and we'd be doing the departed a disservice if we didn't try to make it as easy as death can possibly be. And for the surviving members of that family or that group of friends or what have you, they can have the comfort of knowing that that person passed with some kind of peace. And that's really the premise of the story.
That's a really unique take, and I can pick your brain about that for probably another hour and a half, but this is the quickest 45 minutes has ever gone on this show, Bryan. So before you go, do you want to tell us where we can find your hunting and fishing show on YouTube, and any of the bands that you're in? Where can we find your music?
Yeah, okay, so Laundromat Ponies and the Restless Sons and the Gadwalls are all on Facebook. The Restless Sons have a website. It's just therestlesssons.com. And Brand New Wild is on Instagram. Restless Sons and Laundromat Ponies are on Instagram as well. The Gadwalls aren't yet, but they will be soon. And Brand New Wild is brand_new_wild on Instagram. And there's a link to my YouTube channel on the Instagram page, or you can just look up Brand New Wild on YouTube and find it there as well. And actually our mutual friend Trevor made the logo, not only made the logo for Brand New Wild, but he also made me a really nice logo for the Gadwalls recently as well. So big shout out to him for that.
Awesome. All right. And I'll put as many of those links as I can find in the description of this episode.
Your music's on Spotify too, correct?
The Restless Sons are on Spotify, yeah. The Laundromat Ponies has thus far only done cover songs, and so we haven't recorded anything. And the Gadwalls, right now, we're just doing covers, but there will be some writing happening here in the next several months. So those other 2 projects will have live music eventually. But yes, the Restless Sons are on Spotify. We have at least 2, but all 3 of our records are on Spotify, I think. And then everything's on our website as well.
There's definitely a couple on there. But
yeah.
You got a lot of fun stuff coming, man. The music's great. The show's great. There's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
We don't want to keep you from your night job, so thank you for stopping by. And we hope maybe we can catch you on a day off sometime and we can spend a few hours, or maybe not that long. I don't think for that much time. But some more of your time at any rate. And I really appreciate it. The boys really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Let's definitely do it again soon.
I love it, dude.
Meg, don't hog the Apple Jacks.
Oh, I thought you were studying.
Want some?
No, if it's called Apple Jacks, it should taste like apple.
That's so charming. Everyone knows why they're so good.
Try me.
You're pressuring us. Kellogg's Apple Jacks is part of this complete breakfast. We eat what we like.
Link, Fox, Mega Man, and Mario. The stars of Nintendo sticker cards. You can peel and reveal secret game tips. One free in Kellogg's Apple Jacks.
Hey, no peeking.